Okay, so for Sateji and Boys, we had 4 episodes. H.O.T had 4, Next is 4, g.o.d 4, Fin.K.L 4, and S.E.S 4. Okay, now for the last one, which we haven't covered yet, and they have...
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just...
Wait, we have how many episodes? Hello everyone, welcome back to another adventure in the History of K-Pop Season 1, where we've been taking a look at all the great first generation K-pop idol groups and the accomplishments and legacies they left for the future generations of K-pop idol groups, as well as for us, the fans. Speaking of which, can you believe we're still covering the first generation of K-pop? Can you believe how many iconic groups debuted in this era? Well, I guess you guys can count the ones we've covered so far.
Nope.
In the last episode, we concluded our coverage of S.E.S, and today, the baton will be passed on to the next group. Can you guess who received the baton from Eugene in this scene? I'll give you guys 10 seconds to guess down in the comment section below.
10 seconds later.
So did you guess? The answer is... You'll find out as you watch this episode, so stay tuned. Anyway, as you can see, we're not done yet because today we're diving into the longest running group in the history of K-pop, Shinhwa. Yes, that's half of the answer, but another half is coming soon, whatever that may be. Now, we do have some unfortunate news to deliver, and that is... this will sadly be the last idol group that we cover in the first season of the History of K-Pop series. But don't worry, because we have so much material to cover for Shinhwa that you're getting 8 episodes about them. How exciting, right?
Nope.
Shinhwa, by our definition, is a first-generation idol group. But their history is spread throughout all generations of K-pop. And yes, we are talking about the 2020s as well. Due to this, our researcher Jay, spent the most time doing research on this group out of all groups in this season. Much longer than anyone could imagine. And let me tell you, I was very happy when I saw just how long the research notes were. Anyway, enough of all that, as we have a lot of business to take care of. In today's episode, we'll learn all about the members of Shinhwa, how the group was formed, and we'll cover their promotions for their first 2 albums. And if you guys are familiar with the usual outline of our series, that should sound like 2 episodes worth of information for other first-generation idol groups. But guess what? This is only 1/8 of Shinhwa's story. Believe it or not. In other words, we still have a long journey left. So without further ado, let's get right into it.
Let's go!
As we just said a short moment ago, we have a lot of materials to go through. But as usual, we have to know who is in the group before we learn more about the group's career, right? Yes. So let's start from there. Starting with the easy part, Shinhwa is a 6-member boy group who debuted on March 24th, 1998. But which agency did Shinhwa debut under? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is none other than our good old SM Entertainment. Honestly, is anyone keeping track of how many first-generation groups debuted under SM Entertainment up to this point?
Nope.
너무 많아요.
As we said earlier, there are 6 members in this group, so let's introduce them, one by one. Starting off with Eric, he is the leader and main rapper, followed by Lee Min-woo, who is the lead vocalist and main dancer, and Kim Dong-won is the lead vocalist. Next, Shin Hye-sung is the main vocalist. Jun-jin is the sub-vocalist, lead rapper, and lead dancer. And lastly, Andy is the sub-rapper and lead dancer. Now, I'd assume some of you guys might have guessed it right when I gave you that pop quiz earlier. But for those who didn't know until now, Jun-jin was the correct answer.
이럴 줄 알았어.
Shinhwa is considered to be one of the later groups to emerge in the first generation of idol groups, just like g.o.d, who debuted in 1999. Good old days when the end of the 90s was considered later. Although they debuted under SM Entertainment while their massively successful label mates H.O.T were still in the main spotlight, Shinhwa managed to stand out from the rest of the male idols with their strong and masculine concepts, flashy performance, and most importantly, not being so mysterious. They became so popular, in fact, that they're one of the few idol groups who succeeded in holding a concert at the Seoul Olympic Stadium in both 2001 and 2005. Not to mention, all of their promoted songs have reached #1 on various music charts, except for their debut song. But we'll discuss that later. One of the most special things about Shinhwa, which we will also be discussing further on, is that they have not officially or unofficially disbanded at all over the course of their 20+ year career. To add to that, Shinhwa had no member changes, and they have continued to promote together unlike other groups from this generation, or even across all generations. And yes, you guys heard all of that correctly. In fact, Shinhwa is probably the most un-first generation-like group out of all their first generation idol colleagues. So, shall we take a look at how this most un-first generation-like group was formed? Well, follow us into the next section.
Let's go.
Before we actually start to talk about how Shinhwa was formed, I think it's appropriate to give you guys some background information. And to start that off, let's bring H.O.T up on the stage for a second. Wait, where is the stage?
Oh my God! Whoa!
I apologize for that horrible joke. But anyways, once SM Entertainment saw a massive success with H.O.T, Mr. SM realized the huge potential of the idol group market as a whole, to which we'd say he had correctly predicted. Well, this led his agency to row their boat even harder when they were riding the tidal wave by starting to execute the plan of producing not one, but 2 more idol groups. One of them was S.E.S, and the other one, you guessed it, was Shinhwa. But this was also the time when SM Entertainment was not capable of recruiting a massive number of trainees to be trained. Because back in the day, SM Entertainment was not a large agency as we know it today.
말도 안 돼, 진짜.
So to combat that, they went straight to the point when they were recruiting. Basically, SM Entertainment searched for those who were seemingly going to be popular, and most importantly, those who were talented and skilled. And SM Entertainment did a very good job when it came to this subject. Okay, let us now take a look at the recruitment process. The first member to be selected for the group was Andy, which was towards the end of 1996. Andy's family had immigrated to Orange County, California when he was young, and he was a famous and popular dancer during his middle school days, along with H.O.T's Tony An. Through a casting director, both Andy and Tony auditioned in front of Mr. SM himself, in the middle of a park. I wonder if it was a walk in the park for them. Well, it seems like it was, as both Andy and Tony passed the audition, held in the middle of a park. They both moved to Korea for a short trainee period, and ultimately were selected to be in the group that was going to be H.O.T. As evidence, if you will, Lee Jae-won, who was one of the H.O.T members, recalled the days when Andy used to train with the H.O.T members on an episode of a TV show called Radio Star, which aired on March 6, 2013. However, Andy's parents were not in favor of Andy debuting at such a young age and in a place so far away from them. And understandably so. If anyone has ever flown from Korea to America or vice versa, it's not hard to tell that even the shortest distance between Korea and the US is not short in the very least.
No.
And keep in mind, Andy was still in middle school. And also, as we said before, considering SM Entertainment was not yet the big agency it is today, although that's hard to imagine in the current generation, his parents probably didn't have that much trust in the agency either. Again, understandably so. For these reasons, Andy had to return to America. But maybe luck decided to stick with him for a little longer. At the end of 1996, Andy was once again able to meet Mr. SM himself in LA, and once again, for the second time, was selected by Mr. SM to join his group, but this time as a member of Shinhwa. The next two members selected to join Shinhwa were Eric and Haesung in early 1997. Like Andy, Eric had also immigrated to America when he was young, where he also was a famous dancer in his dance team. Wow, lots of common points here. Him and Andy were basically as close as brothers way before Shinhwa, and Haesung had witnessed their friendship as well, from an unknown distance. According to Andy and Tony, Eric was the type of person who would be famous regardless of his ability to dance. Even if we took away his dance skills, assuming that that's possible, Eric was good looking, good at studying, good at fighting, and etc. Must be nice. When it came to his audition, Eric was actually recommended to Mr. SM himself by a Korean radio broadcast personnel. Except, Eric's audition was also held at a rather interesting location. In a karaoke room. I wonder where the next SM audition location will be.
I'm on the next level.
Despite the rather interesting audition location, Eric passed the audition, of course. Because otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about him as a member here.
당연하죠.
Speaking of which, the audition wasn't the only thing he passed. Not only was he accepted into SM Entertainment, Eric had already been accepted into post-secondary institutions such as UCLA and 3 other universities. Remember, he was also good at studying too. However, he gave up on pursuing a post-secondary education in order to pursue his career as a singer, and ultimately chose SM Entertainment. Now, I'm all for education, but I'm pretty sure his fans are glad he made that decision. On the other hand, Haesung was an international student who had no interest in becoming a singer at first. While everyone around him was more preoccupied with becoming a celebrity, he had started to become interested specifically in music. But Haesung's path took a slight turn one day when he became friends with Hyun-suk, who would end up becoming a member of the group Click B. It was Hyun-suk who asked Haesung to participate in SM Entertainment's audition with him, which he ended up participating in. Ironically, only Haesung passed the audition, but it's definitely not the first time we've heard cases like this. Apparently, when Mr. SM heard Haesung sing, he was very satisfied and said to Andy at the audition, "Isn't he really good?" And of course, this became a turning point for Haesung. Wait, hold on a second. Andy was watching this SM audition too? The next member to be selected was Minu, again in early 1997, who was already a famous dancer in the city of Jeonju. Finally, recruiting someone from Korea. Apparently, he already had fans at that time, and there were rumors going around that he was already being sponsored with clothing. Again, must be nice.
Nothing with the regular.
Because his family was not doing too well financially at the time, Minu formed a dance team and earned money by holding performances. And one day, he joined a dance competition held in Seoul where the prize money was for 3 million won back then, or approximately $3,000 back then. And this was where Minu and one of his friends were recruited by Mr. SM himself. Once recruited, Minu practiced really hard and even made choreographies, which he had checked by Mr. SM himself. Supposedly, due to this, Mr. SM really liked Minu and often gave him checks for his allowance. I mean, how can you not like such a hardworking person? The following member to be selected was Jeonjin, later in 1997. In the Songpa district of Seoul, Jeonjin was also a very famous dancer along with an actor named Philip Choi. I mean, at this point, I just sound like a broken record. Jeonjin was often given the title of 오금고 절바지?
다시 해볼까?
Jeonjin was often given the title of 오금고 절바지. I hope I said that correctly. Sadly, he grew up in a not so great environment and had a rough childhood, and dancing was the only way for him to release his stress. I am glad that he found a way to let out his stress though. When it came to Jeonjin's recruitment, it was actually H.O.T's Kangta, his senior in school, who recommended that he take the audition at SM Entertainment. And well, Jeonjin had indeed passed the audition.
That was easy.
There is an annotation here where my researcher Jay said, it would be a surprise if he didn't pass with his dance skills. Except, once Jeonjin was recruited, Minu's friend was kicked out of the trainee team. Ouch. The final member to be recruited for Shinhwa was Dongwon on November 3rd, 1997. Apparently, the other members remember exactly when he joined the group. He too was quite famous prior to being recruited, but his talent was as a rock vocalist, and apparently, several agencies went out of their way to cast Dongwon. He used to be a trainee at World Music Entertainment, and this is the first time we've heard this agency's name. But the agency disappeared one day, which now explains why we've never heard of this agency. Oh, but this wasn't just some random agency from what we found out, as this agency, when it existed, managed many famous groups from back then, such as Sharp, Country Coco, Uptown, and Eve. Not Ive. And they also distributed albums on behalf of SM Entertainment. And we're guessing this affiliation with SM Entertainment was what allowed Dongwon to be recruited by SM Entertainment. I definitely just said SM Entertainment too many times. Anyway, at first, Dongwon rejected the idea of becoming an idol singer as this was outside of his genre. But he changed his mind once he met the rest of the members, simply because he thought they were cool. I mean, I can't blame him. And finally, once all the members were together, they started to prepare for their debut with SM Entertainment. And I think this is a good time to jump into their album promotions, right? Here we are, back in 1998, to take a look at how Shinhwa's debut went. Let's just pretend that we're in 1998. After all the preparation that the members and SM Entertainment did, Shinhwa's first album named 해결사, or Solver in English, was released in early May of 1998. For some reason, their actual debut stage was a few months earlier on March 24th, 1998 on KMTV's show Music Tank. Sounds very similar to Music Bank. This album had 3 promoted songs, the title song, 해결사, and 2 follow-up songs, Isha Isha and Chanil Yuhon. To put it simply, this album did not do very well. Or at least, it didn't meet SM Entertainment's expectations compared to their other, massively successful groups, H.O.T and S.E.S. By how much? Well, the estimated number of album sales was around 30,000 copies, which is significantly lower than the sales figures for SM Entertainment's other groups, which reached up to 1 million. So I guess I can see why the agency was let down. Yeah. At the time of Shinhwa's debut, the effects of the IMF economic crisis from 1997 were still in place. And in addition to that, Korea experienced massive flooding in the summer of that year when they promoted with Isha Isha. Now, although this is definitely sad, there's an interesting incident with this particular song. During the performance of Isha Isha, there is a lyric that translates to, "Can't we put everything aside and go for a water vacation?" So Shinhwa was performing on stage, all smiley, during this particular part, and during the rest of the song as well, while at the same time, the donation advertisement for the flooding was also placed on the corner of the broadcast as well. Ooh, darn. Also, the fact that Shinhwa had to promote, and therefore go up against H.O.T and Jack's Kiss at that time, did not help their situation either. And we all should know why from our previous episodes. That being said, apparently Shinhwa's debut album promotions did not exactly stand out and failed to leave much of an impression on the general public. And that is why all promoted songs from their debut album are actually the only promoted songs that Shinhwa never won first place with. I guess that's a bit of a spoiler alert. With that, it's probably not hard to guess how the members would have felt when they found out that their debut album promotions weren't going so well. And it wasn't hard for us to find out how they felt about it. When making an appearance on the SBS radio show, Young Power Open Up Your Mind, around that time, Minu apparently let out his and his members' frustrations about being unable to achieve first place despite working hard to promote 3 songs. And as we mentioned earlier, SM Entertainment's reaction was not so positive either.
당연하죠.
Considering how much effort and resources they put into debuting Shinhwa, and also considering how successful their other idol groups were, they were possibly even more disappointed than the group themselves. Or maybe not. For first-generation idol groups, their level of success was usually determined within the first 3 to 4 months of their promotions. And given that Shinhwa hadn't seen much success within that period of time, the group could have almost disbanded as a result. If you guys remember from our g.o.d episodes, they also went through a similar case. Except g.o.d actually sold more copies of their debut album than Shinhwa did. Although this debut period wasn't exactly a joyful one, they still had a lot to be proud of. First, the choreography of their title song was actually made by Minu and Junjin. Second, Eric also appears to have contributed to writing lyrics for many of the songs on their debut album, including English and rap parts. And third, despite the result from back then, many people still consider those songs to be good, even if you listen to them today. That's a lot of impressive work and effort put into their debut. But they still made some mistakes, if you can call it that. First, somehow the group's name ended up being printed as Shinhwa instead of Shinhwa on their album. But honestly, spelling mistakes aren't all that bad. At least compared to the next one. Well, his song went off-key during one stage performance of Isha Isha, which led to him hiding in a dressing room and crying for 3 hours. And I promise I'm not making fun of him.
Are you sure?
But I really hope he is able to look back at this now and laugh it off, because major success and recognition was just around the corner. Well guys, we have just reached that corner. Wow, that was quick. So let's take a look at Shinhwa's second album, which was released on April 15th, 1999, and was titled T.O.P, or Top. Not to be confused with this T.O.P. The promoted songs from this album were the title song T.O.P, or Twinkling of Paradise, finally an acronym that makes grammatical sense, and the follow-up song Yo. Both the group members and SM Entertainment prepared this album, keeping in mind that Shinhwa would potentially disband if this album also did not see much success. Again, this sounds quite familiar to another idol group we discussed before. Fortunately for everyone involved, the group did not have to disband as they ended up selling around 377,500 copies of the album, which is over 10 times the sales figure compared to their debut album, and scored first place multiple times with both songs they promoted. When I say multiple, I mean they scored first place 8 times with T.O.P and 7 times with Yo. Talk about a 180-degree switch from their last album. Yo.
my god! Oh my god!
칭찬하고 받아들입니다.
진짜.
감사합니다.
Interestingly, the title song T.O.P was sampled from Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake, and it was received quite well by the public for how Shinhwa reinterpreted and transformed it into their own style, paired with their edgy choreography. The follow-up song, Yo, was quite popular with female students in middle and high school. It followed the trend of incorporating social criticism into the lyrics, but in a way that was more suitable for students. However, the music video for the song was ultimately deemed inappropriate to be broadcast on TV. And well, researcher Jay and I actually watched the MV, and our thoughts on this were, we can see why this was the case. Once again, Eric contributed a lot to the writing of English and rap lyrics in this album, though other members took part in this process as well. And that concludes our first, but certainly not last, episode on the iconic first-generation idol group, Shinhwa. We covered some general info, how the group came together, and the group's promotions of the first two albums from their very prolific discography. Well, as if it wasn't already obvious at this point, we still have a lot more to cover with Shinhwa. In fact, 2 albums isn't even close to how many albums we have to go through. So please make sure to tune in for the next episode where we'll be diving into their next 4 albums and their corresponding promotions. And oh, by the way, did you know this is the 26th episode in the first season of the History of K-pop series? Anyway, that means there's 25 more episodes that came before this one. And if you're into this kind of stuff, they're all awaiting your viewing pleasure. You guys didn't think we'd close off this episode without asking you some questions, right? So here we go. Did you know about Shinhwa and their music before this? And do you guys think that their first album would be considered a failure based on the sales numbers? Let us know in the comments down below. And of course, please let us know what we might have missed in today's video or if anything needs to be corrected. Also, please leave any questions you have throughout the season on any particular video in the series, as we're planning to have a special review or Q&A episode at the end of this season. As always, thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you want to tune in next time, and remember to stay awkward. Bye.